This morning we're going to do a fluffy kitty. So real easy technique using just a couple of simple watercolors. Actually we're going to use a round brush and something to carry water onto the paper with. I've just got a little square of paper for our demo this morning, a little piece of good quality watercolor paper, and I'm going to first moisten the paper. This is a wet on wet technique, and I could use a little spray bottle to spray it with. I'm going to actually moisten both sides of the paper. Spread some water on this side and flip it over and spread some water on the opposite side. This will help the paper lay flat while I'm working on it. This way it won't curl up. Okay. Now I could have used a little spray mister to get some spritz some water on this as well, and then just brush it off with a flat brush. So let's just let that sit for a minute and let the water absorb into the paper. I just want a little sheen on there. Just want the paper to absorb some of the water, but not dry out completely. I'm going to work wet into wet. Okay, so we'll start there. And I've got my round brush and some clean water. I'm going to fill the brush with clean water, and I'm using some burnt sienna, really watery, just really thin down, and a little bit of cadmium yellow. Now we're just going to let the paint and the paper do its own thing. I'm just going to create a little shape. First, the head, an oval, and then the top of the body, and then the bottom of the body. Really thin, watery paint. And then I'll just pull a little tail out there. It's going to be a fluffy cat. Now see what's happening? The moisture from the paper is pulling the paint out to the side. Don't worry about that little spot there. It's wet. Now as the paper dries, we pick up paint that's a little thicker, not quite as much water, and then you can start to put that dense color down his back and even create some patterns in there. Maybe it's a yellow yellow tabby cat. The thicker the paint, the more color I'm going to get, and it will stabilize. Wherever I want shadows, I'll just put a little denser paint, a little denser pigment. And there it goes. He's getting fluffier and fluffier. Build out the pattern. All the way down. I'm going to make him light coming in from the right side, so I'll add a little more color on the left. So build in a shadow. Here we go. Now when I want to stop the spreading, when I want to stop the paint from spreading, I can take a clean, dry paper towel or tissue and just blot, gently blot around to dry the paper out, and the paint won't spread any farther than that. So I'm just going to blot that gently. Leave it a little wet down at the bottom there. Some clean water. And I'll pick up, make a little violet color with some blue and rose. Ultramarine blue, rose. It might be a little bright, so I can tone it with some of my brown. And I can cast a shadow underneath. Because the paper is still wet down here, it's going to merge right up into the cat. And with some of that violet still on my brush, we'll go back into the burnt sienna and make a little darker color. A little pattern that comes down off the top of the cat's head. There we are. Back and forth, establish a little more pattern. And I'm using not the point of the brush, but the side of the brush. And can start to pull some little hairs out onto the tail. Now if I rinse my brush out and blot it on a dry paper towel, I can actually use the point of my brush to pull out some of the color. There we go. And add highlights. Right in here. We're just going to check. Looks pretty dry. Fairly dry brush, just damp. It's blotted on the paper towel. and a couple of little ears, little pointy ears. This way and this way. And you can use a fine detail brush, or if you've got a really good point on the brush, a couple of just little whiskers going out from one side. And there he is. We just let the bottom disappear, just like it is. And let's add a little element up here for him to be gazing at. I've used the violet down here, so I'll pick up a little bit of my violet, maybe a little rose. Little brush strokes, touch, touch. There you go. There's our butterfly. And we'll finish it off. With a few little flecks. Now, I like to just take a piece of torn paper towel and cover the main element, mask it off, and a little spattering gives it some action. And there we have it. I think that's a little bit too wet. I'm going to let it rest before I put the body on the butterfly. And I might take a little of this paper towel and just soften some of those spatters, some of those wet spatters.